we reached peak oil in the world. That was easy oil, non-fracked oil, where you could just pump it out. 1970, okay?
Okay.
Then in 1980, they started to get more into fracking. You started seeing the expansion of it. Didn't you mention that in one of your sinkholes dates?
Yes, they've been doing the fracking. They've increased the fracking and shooting that fresh water in there, which dissolves the salt content, if I understand that correctly.
That's right. Now, by 2007, according to estimates, we had extracted 135 billion tons of oil from the planet.
Okay.
That was 2007.
Okay.
Now, since then, fracking has increased. So you drain the oil out of your engine, you're gonna have a lot of earthquakes inside your engine. But not only that, as you drain these massive reservoirs, then the earth collapses on top of them.
Yeah, it has to.
It has to. There's nowhere to go.
So, Frank, let me ask you: is the difference between drilling oil and just extracting it from the ground, and fracking, which is infusion of powerful fresh water, which then forces the gases out or force the oil out?
They
the
both
fresh
have
water,
destructive forces.
Tell me why. How's the destruction work?
Well, I think in prior to the 19th, they still in Saudi Arabia is still able to pump just oil, but when you pump just major reservoirs of pure oil, then you create vast caverns. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
That are empty. But when you frack, you create pockets and zones where the shale is. They'll go underground and they may go a mile or two in each direction, and it decreases the volume of the shale. It's not a complete collapse. But, Paul, the danger in fracking, which is really worse in a lot of ways, is they have not only used water, but they have used nuclear waste as a way of disposing it in these fracking operations. And that all goes through the aquifers of all the water in the world.
Wow. So this is having major destructive implications on the planet, because it's doing destructive. It's water going in places it's not supposed to go, affects the mineral, the salt content, everything taking place there. So is Texas potentially, here's one of the things they mentioned in the article today, it's potential that those two big sinkholes could actually be just the beginning of a massive sinkhole as much as a mile in diameter, and threaten the populations of Wink and Kermit, Texas. That just to me is unfathomable.
I haven't seen the video, but if I were going to do a video on it, I would look and see where the oil pockets were. I'm going to find the geodata from the oil companies and where they had been drilling and where the underground reservoirs would give you a good indication. But, Paul, that area is also a major water aquifer, that entire area through that part of the United States. But there's been a massive, do you know that they have found now that part of Yellowstone and was a giant caldera, but this section of Texas, where if you've ever driven through West Texas and see these cliffs, out in there in the cattle ranges and the lines of cliffs, that is a major caldera. They're just now finding out that those cliff ranges are the edges of the world's largest caldera that extends from Yellowstone to Texas. So that area has been active before, but this oil thing, God, when he taught in the Bible, many times it would be on a couple different levels, a spiritual level, a physical level. And he said, touch not my oil. But that would be on the physical level. I think spiritually maybe means his chosen, his old, the knowledge, things like that, But definitely when you drain your oil out of the motor, it's going to blow apart.
So what's causing, let's go back to the wobble of the earth. Because you're saying that during this wobble of the earth, it does affect, there's been historically major earthquakes and volcanoes that have happened during certain times of the wobble. So we are seeing the earth is wobbling, no question. Will it slow even more, or will it speed back up again?
It's still slowing. This year, while you were in Israel, which, by the way, those are amazing videos that you and Heidi and Stephen did. very good. It's good to see that kind of live information, Paul.
Thank you so much.
And I'd like to see you do an update on the Illuminati stuff and see if it ties into Constantine and the way he really didn't save Christianity. If you study in the historical, he absorbed it because he felt threatened by it.
You are exactly right. Matter of fact, we barely showed you any footage that what we really have from there. I just gave you little bits. We are going to pull that all together and we're going to do 2 television shows that will air this information, but then we're also going to do a book on the Illuminati, and it will also include Constantine. And to your point about Constantine, he was trying to reshape, he did some stuff that helped preserve parts of Christianity, but he was doing it with the motivation to reshape Christianity. And
at the same time, he polluted it with his worship. But he appeared to say all other religions were unimportant, but he turned it into a sun worship system that we see even at the Vatican.
So what was really shocking to us is to go into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre there in Jerusalem, and there's this Illuminati eye over the altar of the Greek Orthodox Church of the worship portion, and that eye was staring into the open sepulchre that millions of people believe is the sepulchre that Christ rose from the dead. And the checkered floor is the entrance to the sepulchre. That was just shocking. Now, the other thing was to go to John the Baptist's church, and they have where the head of John the Baptist was buried, and they actually have pieces of skull that many believe are pieces of the skull of John the Baptist. They have that on display there. But above the altar, again, was the Illuminati eye at the church, and that church is St. John the Baptist. That's controlled by the Greek Orthodox Church as well. And then we went to the Bethlehem, to the Church of Nativity. Now, the Church of Nativity has 3 different churches in there. The Church of the Orthodox Church, again, Greek Orthodox. Also, the Armenians have a sanctuary, and also the Vatican has a sanctuary. But it's in the Greek Orthodox section, again, in the old part, above the altar is another Illuminati eye just above the altar again. So these are 3 finds that Heidi found, and oh, by the way, she found several more throughout the city of Jerusalem and other places. So we'll pull that all together and do the historical research. And I'm glad you bring up Constantine, because everywhere we went, we bumped into either Constantine or his mother, St. Helena.
Right.
Everywhere. We just kept bumping into them. So there's an influence. I think I tried to say that in my YouTube video. There's an Illuminati influence in Israel. Israel itself has the 3 religions of the apocalypse. You have the Muslims, the Jews, and the Christians, and they're all converging on the same spot, same area.
That's right.
And that's all biblical prophecy. That's basically what we knew was going to happen. But the Illuminati's got a seat at the table. I mean, there's no question about it. In many of the buildings, modern-day buildings, we were looking at unbelievable amounts of buildings that are going to be for condos and apartments for settlements with pyramids on the top of every one of them. This was some amazing stuff, and it seems to be increasing there. So we'll bring that all out. I'm glad you brought that up. I appreciate the fact you guys enjoyed that.
Well, Paul, it's kind of amazing to see that type growth there. And, if you read the Bible, it almost creates a conflict, and you had mentioned it earlier where it says flee. When you see these things happen, flee. And you talked about going to Petra, and the Bibles being stored there and things like that, and pray that you not be with child in that time. Now, we talked, and Paul was good about talking and preaching on different levels, where the more your eyes were open, the more you understood, and he would try to simplify it. But then if you were advanced in your study, you could understand it on the other levels. But I think this being impregnated or while with child, at that time, we're going to be seeing this new world religion being pushed heavily. Now, if you have lain in bed with Satan spiritually and you are impregnated with this new doctrine of this new world religion, you will be with child and you will have trouble.
Wow.
Could that be the spiritual implication of that? Because
Yeah,
that's been a question for a long time.
That's a great analogy and a great question. You know, the Bible tells you.
We're dealing with spiritual brides, remember?
Oh, yes. And, the Bible tells you a man can't take fire to his bosom and will he not be burned? That's an Old Testament question in the book of Proverbs. Then you got my daddy's theory. If you run with the dogs, you'll get fleas. Okay, so either one will work in this instance, and that is there's a no question there will be a influence that will affect people in different cultures, that the New World Order is affecting the cultures, and I'm talking not only just in Israel, but I mean all over the world. I mean, we can see it in Washington, D.C., we can see it across our country, Europe, England, all over the whole world. Any time that pagan worship, or in this case, it's Illuminati is really is the oldest form of pagan worship there really is.
It really is.
It really is, and it's coming forward though right now in a modern way that's quite extraordinary, and people don't really know, and so we have to try to bring it to their attention because it's part of the end time. It is the New World Order, is the beast. It really is. It's the satanic, it's Satan's manifestation of his kingdom that he wants to rule the world instead of Christ.
Paul, we're seeing Revelation 17 explode now before our eyes.
Amen.
And I won't touch on it very much, just a couple little things, because you're a watchman, I'm a watchman, and I see this coming, and you have such a wide audience, but I'll throw it out like I did the being with child.
Okay.
On the spiritual level, and just as in my opinion only, no man will have it right until our spiritual eyes are open.
Right.
I don't believe we can try, and I prayed about this and studied about it a lot, by the way. And at first, and each time I would take a break and come back over a couple-week period of studying this chapter, it became easier.
Okay.
But in 17, it's talking about the beast and the woman riding the beast, and she rides, and the beast comes out of the ocean, and that's in 13 too. We talk about the first beast there. And if you go on to 17, the angel is telling John some of the things he saw in 13. He says, I'll tell you the mystery of the woman in Revelation 17:17. And he goes on and says, the ocean you saw rise up was the people, the multitudes, the tongues. So it's going to rise out of the people, this beast system. But in 13, he says this beast, and you understand Daniel and Revelation are very closely related, are the same, the beast that rise with the heads are the different dynasties, starting back with the oldest known one through the Egyptians. But the oldest one was Babylon, Mesopotamia, and its sign was the lion.
Yeah.
And if in 13 he says you got the leopard, the lion, and the bear.
And the bear.
And those represent different empires. But what was key was the beast was behind each one of these heads. In other words, in Babylon, Satan led.
Yes.
Ever since they were cast out, the next dynasty, Satan was behind it all. And this mystery woman, many people, which is probably about 99% correct, the woman, the harlot, the whore of Babylon, now is represented by the church, or the Holy Roman Church.
Guys, you just saw part one of a 4-part series of over an hour interview. We went back and redoing them because we used so many diagrams on the show, and most people couldn't see those diagrams that we're overlaying them, so you will have an idea of what we were discussing. Now, we've done this before, but if you call Paul Begley, email his website, paulbegleyprophecy.com, you can get a free Bible. Not only will he buy the Bible, he will also pay the postage, and that could be very important. Some of us use electronic Bibles in these days and times, but as this earth changes and times change, you may need a physical copy. So if you need one, get it. If you have one, help other people get it. You can go here and donate right here on the donate page. I'll put a link to a site. And what we did it before, we raised a lot of money. We put a lot of Bibles in people's hands that didn't have them. That could be important to them. It could be important to you. So just a couple bucks, if that's all you got, that will help him do it. He can't do it by himself. The guy works his tail off every day, him and Heidi, and let's help him. That's all I got to say. Part 2 will be up soon, guys. Heads up. Be safe.